Good evening and welcome to the CASAA update for the week of 6/6/2016. How are you this evening, Alex?
Pretty good, actually.
Okay. So what is been going on this week? And I know we said we are going to talk about Senator Johnson last week, but it's probably, you're right. We should have talked about him this week.
Um, well, the timing works out pretty well.
Yeah.
He sent a follow-up letter to the FDA Commissioner Robert Califf
Mm-hmm.
today. So, for those who haven't seen the news release or on social media today, Senator Ron Johnson was expecting, actually, I guess you could say he demanded an answer from the FDA that was due on, that was last Tuesday on the
Yep.
31st. Um, and I guess I can't remember if we mentioned this last week or not. I mean, I think it was maybe you that had mentioned this. Apparently, um, the FDA had responded either in a tweet.
Yeah.
I guess so. It was in a tweet. I couldn't find the tweet. I was looking for it.
I wonder
Um,
if they deleted it because it was just one of the weird things I saw, and I was like, that's really weird. Why would they say it was a private matter? Well, it's not really, it's a matter of public record.
yeah, totally not a private matter.
Yeah.
Especially when your regulations affect hundreds of thousands of people,
Yeah.
arguably millions of people. Yeah, that's not. I don't think that qualifies as a private matter.
Not so
Um,
much.
so yeah, and I should admonish you for being a bad vapor and not screen capping that or something. Um,
Sorry, I don't know. I expect transparency from my government officials. I didn't know they were going to take it down. Now
oh,
everything I see from them, I'm screenshotting.
yeah, Jan, you should know better.
I should, yeah.
Um, so yeah, apparently the FDA has been pretty smug in their treatment of this and basically blowing off Senator Johnson's request. And he followed up today. I'm looking at the news release on his site,
Mhm.
and it's basically rehashing the original letter. But in the interim, it sounds like Senator Johnson has heard from, I'm sure, several of his constituents. I'm sure he's heard from vapors all over the country and probably the world,
Probably.
um, talking about how these products have helped them. And he has heard from businesses, I'm sure, going through kind of a similar exercise as has been recommended to them in the past, stating, how many people they employ, how much business they do, all the different products that they carry, and that's just, you just sort of expand from that how many people would be affected by this.
Right.
Um, so yeah, since and everybody knows once you get on the vaping community's good side, you tend to hear quite a bit from them in the way of
Yeah.
support. So that's certainly Senator Johnson has been experiencing that. And then the best part is the last couple sentences, the last paragraph of his letter, which I will read. First of all, he is expecting this information to come from the FDA by no later than 5 p.m. on June 20th of this year. So 14 days from now, I'm sure that we can expect another smug response from the FDA. And then he goes on to say, if the FDA does not provide an adequate response to these inquiries, the committee may be forced to resort to other means to compel the production of this information.
Ooh.
Thank you for your attention to this matter. I don't know if this means some sort of Senate committee investigation. Certainly, both the FDA and the CDC have been, on our list of government agencies that should be investigated by Congress or the Senate. Um, it's very possible that Senator Johnson is maybe providing us with another opportunity for a legislative response to the FDA.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, this will be this is an interesting development, and when the time comes, we'll be happy to support. I have been kicking around the idea. I think I need to give Senator Johnson a call and see what, if anything, CASAA can do to help support him in his efforts to get a response, a substantive response from the FDA, in a timely fashion.
Well, I mean, how many years behind were they on putting out the regs? A couple of years, at least from their first deadline. So, they're following tradition with taking too long to reply to the senator. And I think the FDA might be just about to find out that I think senators and congressmen have short timelines, not like the public. You know, they want an answer, and they should get one.
Yeah, and this is I heard somebody else kind of talking about this the other night. You know, the public's timeline on in this matter is actually shorter than advertised.
Right.
I think we have these kind of hard and fast dates.
Mm-hmm.
August 8th of this year is when the regulations, that's the effective date. And then August 8th of 2018 is when FDA starts kind of the hardcore enforcement of actually taking products off the market that don't have their PMTAs in.
Right.
But it's the timeline is much shorter, and you're going to see the small to medium sized businesses, if they aren't already making their plans to cut their losses or come out on top and exit the market before the drop dead date in 2018, they will likely be doing that soon.
Yeah.
So over the course of the next 2 years, which means earlier than 2 years, the industry is going to start shrinking. And so it is actually very, very critical that we start getting responses from people. When the FDA is asked to respond to this stuff, it's there's millions of lives at stake here. This
Mhm.
and I don't care if money impresses everybody a lot more. This is you know there's just so much more to this issue than the $4 billion or five or whatever $1 billion this industry is estimated to be.
Yeah.
Um, so that's hey folks, that's your Food and Drug Administration for you. They give zero cares about the actual welfare of Americans. So
Well, I mean, at least somebody is holding their feet to the fire, not just us, which is nice.
yeah.
And someone in the chat asked, "Can a committee put a stay on rule enforcement?" I don't actually know about that, and I don't think you know about that, do you?
Um, I'm not sure. I would have to research that. I don't know if there's any precedents for that. As far as we know, as far as I know, the most likely route for an injunction is going to be through the courts.
Right.
And then, of course, the other option is actually changing the law. So
Mm.
if you change the law, there's nothing really, you
For
know,
them to do.
yeah,
Well, I
it
mean,
just,
there
it
will
just,
be. Yeah.
yeah. There's plenty. Ultimately, the FDA is still going to end up with some regulatory authority over these products.
Hmm.
That's not so much up for debate.
Right.
It's how they regulate these products that we're working very hard to fix. So yeah. Speaking of that, if we're
Yeah.
ready to move along,
Hmm.
um, I talked about it a little bit last week, but I had the privilege to travel to Oklahoma City on Tuesday
Right.
and meet with Congressman. Um, sorry, I'm turning my phone. Meet with Congressman
Cool.
Tom Cole. Uh, and along with Cap O'Rourke from SFATA, Scott Ely from AIMSA, Sean Gore was there, formerly of OVAL, Oklahoma Vaping Advocacy League,
Uh-huh.
and I believe that they're sort of transitioning into becoming a SFATA chapter.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so there was a couple other people there who were part of that. And it was a good meeting. It was a long way to travel for like 20 minutes with a congressman, but I suspect that that's how a lot of this stuff goes.
Right.
And I was, we were able to ask him point blank, should both the HR 2058 and Cole Bishop Amendment be supported?
Mm-hmm.
And his answer was simply and without hesitation, yes. And it is still very important to get co-sponsors on HR 2058
Right.
because although there's a distinct possibility that neither of these pieces of legislation go the distance this year,
Mm-hmm.
but getting support, getting co-sponsors on HR 2058 can actually be a little bit more meaningful than just getting support for Cole Bishop, because when you sign on as a co-sponsor, that's a matter of record, and those people are likely to sign on again the next year.
Right.
So we sort of fully anticipate that HR 2058 won't go the distance this year, but will likely be reintroduced, renumbered, and possibly amended a little bit for 2017.
Right.
So, in either one of these instances, urging congressmen to support this language is vital. And so I'm hopeful that we have sort of put this debate to bed, and that, it's just the overall goal here is to support a change to the predicate date.
Yeah.
And we can hash out the details of kind of additional language, this and that,
Mm-hmm.
going through 2017. But for right now, both of these bits of regulation bits of legislation need our support.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I won't get into too many finer points of some other things that we talked about, but we did talk about some of the additional provisions in the Cole Bishop Amendment, and you know the the kind of consensus on that is that this is stuff that again, like I just said, can
Mm-hmm.
be sort of hashed out in 2017 or can be hashed out somewhere else. There is an effort to get this language in a Senate version,
Mm-hmm.
that when you have these budget bills, you have a Senate version, you have a House version. They're racing towards the end, and they sort of
Uh-huh.
meet up in conference, for concurrence,
Mm-hmm.
and that is another opportunity for us to change the language. So that is an ongoing process, and we'll be working to get that done, in the last half of this year.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a good meeting. Sean Gore is an excellent host. I had a good time hanging out with him, and it's always good to go into these meetings, shoulder to shoulder, unified front with the other organizations,
Sure.
um, and yeah, it was a good time.
That's good. So, um, has anything else been going on?
Well, for folks living in Pennsylvania, your state assembly, or I forget how they say it there, your legislature is back in session today, or they were until about 2 hours ago, or whenever government employees kick off for the day.
Right.
Um, it We put out a call to action last week. The 40% wholesale tax is back on the table, for Pennsylvania. And the idea last week was to try to reach out to legislators before they went back to Harrisburg.
Right.
Now they're back in Harrisburg, and I sent out an updated email for Pennsylvanians today with the capital phone numbers for their lawmakers. That would be the 717 area code. And so, yeah, even if you called their the district office last week, give them a call at the Capitol again this week. And there's emails to be sent, there's phone calls to be made, and yeah, we'd really like to push this back again this year.
Cool.
Uh,
So it's been exciting all the way around then.
yeah, I last week obviously was sort of, we had Memorial Day on Monday, so that was supposed to be kind of a break.
Hmm.
We talked about Illinois last week,
Right.
um, and I think there was actually a really, really good response to uh, that
That's
committee
awesome.
hearing. I forgot. I know that Vicky in Illinois actually posted up an update. Um, uh, but Vicky Vasconcelos, one
Hmm.
of our board of advisors, she's also SFATA chair in Illinois.
Hmm.
Um, so there is that. There are efforts afoot in California to push back against um, the tobacco tax ballot initiative.
Right.
Um, I'm not providing a whole lot of details at this moment, but I don't actually have a whole lot of details. But I do know that people in California are working to push back against that. Um, and then, yeah, so other kind of California things. Um, I had spoken to, well, I was out there in Sacramento,
Okay.
and when Safata, California did their lobby day.
Hmm.
And I think I can't remember if we had talked about this back then, but I did kind of want to reiterate because I had heard some comments on another um, internet thing
Right.
um, that despite, well, so California has these horrible laws that were passed, and it changes regulations for everything. It raises the age to purchase vapor products to 21. It limits where you can vape, um, and there's some other stuff that goes along with that. And so what I had heard was that California businesses were being um, encouraged to just comply and kind of suck it up and live with it.
Okay.
Um, this is not actually what my experience was when we were in Sacramento.
Okay.
And going forward, I think that there's some clarity that's being offered about that.
Okay.
There are efforts afoot to to fix this in 2017, and this is going to be a popular theme going forward. Here we are in June,
Hmm.
so we're sort of past a lot of First of all, I believe like 2/3 of the country, their legislatures are adjourned for the year.
Right.
There's always that chance that they come back in for special session stuff. Usually that's reserved for budget discussions. And or if somebody decides to go all emergency public health like California did last year.
Yeah.
Um, but for the most part, most of the country is in recess. Um, the So the theme is going to be, we're going to look towards 2017 for new bills to be introduced and hopefully fix some of this um, legislative assault on vapor products.
Hmm.
Um, so again, my experience in being in Sacramento with the California Safada people was that there were talks about potentially fixing things in 2017. It's just you're not going to hear a whole lot about it until pre-filing or until somebody's actually willing to work on this. So it could be December, January before anything really picks up uh,
Right.
in terms of what people are hearing. But California is not just giving up and rolling over. There is work still to be done. And of course, case in point, this tobacco tax ballot initiative, which is likely going to be, I guarantee you, you're going to have thousands of vapors that sign, that vote yes on this because they look at it and they see, oh, well, it's a tax on cigarettes or it's a tax on tobacco, and I'm not tobacco, so it doesn't affect me. Um, and so there's an awful lot of education that needs to be going on in California. And from what I understand, there are business owners out there that are taking that responsibilities very seriously and getting together and working to make that happen. So um, again, if you live in California, definitely take a second look at your ballot this year. And when it says tobacco tax, whatever, that includes vapor products now. California changed their definition before the FDA got involved. So vote no. Just please,
Yeah.
please vote no on that.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I no, you're right. And I think what's surprising to me is how many people are involved in the industry and how many people vape and have absolutely no idea what's going on.
yeah, and that actually leads to the next thing that I was going to bring up. The the next piece of major regulation that kicks in, uh, it happens a full week, I believe. Wait, just so I get this right,
Okay.
it could be slightly more than a week.
Hmm.
Let's see. Uh, okay, so almost 2 weeks before the effective date of the FDA deeming regulations,
Okay.
July 26th of this year,
Right.
all bottles of nicotine containing liquid need to be sold in child resistant packaging.
Okay.
This is not that kind of handshake, oh yeah, it's child resistant cat type agreement you get from your whoever supplies your bottles, whoever supplies your e-liquid. If
Right.
it's coming from Europe, if it's coming from China, if it's coming from anywhere in the country, and
Hmm.
they say, oh yeah, it's child resistant, you need to be able to verify that.
Okay.
And it needs to be compliant with the US code.
Hmm.
There is a section in it's USC,
Okay.
United States Code, or CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, US CFR. It is Title 16, Section 1700.20. It is a very specific testing protocol for child resistant packaging. And whoever is shipping you your bottles should be able to uh, send you some sort of sheet saying that they have been, you know, tested,
Right.
they are compliant with the US code.
Hmm.
Um, there are different standards for different parts of the world. You
Okay.
need the US one if you're going to sell your products in the United States. And we're a little bit behind in getting our newsletter out, but there's a section in there that, you know, how this, obviously this affects consumers because if you're a manufacturer and you're not selling stuff that's compliant, then we're going to lose access to it
Right.
because, enforcement is going to start soon.
Hmm.
Um, and there are, uh, it's again, it's shocking the number of people who are not aware of the FDA deeming regulations. But this is sort of a little bit more shocking because this was signed by President Obama back in January.
Yep.
And that there was some effort to get the word out, but still, I think that there's a lot of retailers and a lot of manufacturers who are unaware of this deadline.
Yeah.
And it's certainly been overshadowed by what's going on with the FDA. So part of what we're putting out in our newsletter coming up, hopefully it's this week,
Hmm.
will be, you know, for consumers to ask their retailers, do you know that your bottles are going to be compliant with the Child Nicotine Poisoning Prevention Act of 2015 come July 26th? It's a very important question. If you like a particular brand, make sure that they are going to be compliant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Some states have already adopted this. I think New Jersey was one of them. I know there's a few in the Northeast that did.
Uh-huh.
So I want to say half a dozen or more states had adopted some sort of child-resistant packaging rule, um, and that was, it's something that we've been supportive of, and it had to be specifically worded that it was basically consistent with the federal standard, which is this Title 16, 1700.20 thing.
Okay.
So, so yeah, that's coming up. Everybody needs to be aware of it. I think I'll just mention it every week until until the deadline. I'll probably mention it on August 1st, just for good measure.
Okay. Well, it's good. I mean, sometimes that's what it takes. Repeat, 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 repeat. Sometimes that's how people learn. And I know this has nothing to do with us, but did you see the designated vaping area story that came out of Canada the other day?
I might have seen it. I might have glossed over it, but feel
Okay.
free to.
Um, there was a news channel up there that was walking around doing a man on the street piece, and they found this sign that said designated vaping area. They'd never seen one before because they haven't passed their final rule on how they're going to deal with vaping and all that sort of thing. So they went and they filmed it, and they went and asked their government there, and the government came and took them down and said they knew nothing about them. So I guess outdoors in Vancouver and the like, you're going to have only dedicated spaces outdoors where you can vape, is what it's looking like. And I just thought that was pretty interesting because it seems to be, outdoor vaping bans seem to be a thing now. So,
Well, I know that Quebec
mhm.
actually passed part of their law that they recently passed was no smoking on terraces,
Okay.
which is a popular feature in and around Montreal.
Hmm.
If you've ever been to Montreal, a lot of the townhouses there have steps that go up to the second floor they're outside the building.
Right.
And of course, there's a landing at the top typically, and then of course everybody, apartment living, you typically have some sort of back porch.
Hmm.
But I guess that's if you're in sort of a nice apartment. Even the not so nice apartments have them.
Right.
Um, but it's a popular space to go hang out and smoke. But
Mhm.
now that is illegal, even though you're on your own private property. Um, it is illegal to smoke on your landing outside, and that includes vaping.
Wow.
And yeah, Quebec has probably the strictest tobacco and now vaping regulations in all of Canada.
Wow.
They also, I believe, had like the slowest decline in smoking rates compared to the rest of the country. So I tweeted about that recently. Um,
That's so weird.
yeah, it is a bit strange. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
I just thought that was interesting. You know, um, at least they're actually giving people a space to vape instead of saying, not outside, not at all, not where pedestrians might be. So I don't know. It's just interesting the way different governments in different countries do different things.
Yeah, and I guess it's a province by province thing up there for now.
Mhm.
Obviously, there are some federal standards. It would be interesting to watch Canada because they have a new prime minister. He's young and relatively hip and is intent on legalizing marijuana.
Uh-huh.
And so, my feeling is that, harm reduction arguments should actually play very well with Justin Trudeau. But that remains to be seen.
Yeah. So, do you, is that about it for this week, Alex? Or
I think that's it. I always feel like I'm forgetting something. But
okay,
oh.
good.
One more thing, and I promise this is it.
No worries.
I
Take
watched
your time.
I really shouldn't mention a product name, but it's the only way to refer to it.
Okay.
I watched the White Cloud e-cigs webinar with Aaron Biebert
Me
today.
too. I
And
was home in time to see it. Yeah.
it's good. Aaron's a great guy, and we've had the pleasure of getting to know him over the past couple of years. And I'm very excited to see the A Billion Lives documentary,
Me too.
et cetera, et cetera. Anybody who's following this knows that it made a splash in New Zealand, and in fact, apparently has gone some way towards changing some policy there.
Mm.
So we're very hopeful to see that in the United States soon. Um, but one of the things that he brought up that I feel is worth mentioning and rebroadcasting, and I'll put this in our newsletter,
Mm-hmm.
is that they need a lot of kind of social media buzz, and not just kind of reposting posts about A Billion Lives, but actual likes on their Facebook page. So to keep it short, anybody listening, go and make sure that you like A Billion Lives on Facebook, follow them on Twitter, and encourage your friends to do the same.
Yeah.
There should be hundreds of thousands of people liking that. Every vapor that this is kind of like joining CASAA at this point. In order to generate enough buzz about this movie so that major movie studios take an interest in it, they need to see a lot of popularity on social media. That's just sort of one of the things that
Mm-hmm.
people can do. But man, that is free and easy to do.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, and
Exactly.
I'll put that in the newsletter too.
That no, that was a pretty good webinar. I generally catch the White Cloud ones when they're uploaded to YouTube because I'm not
Mhm.
always home. So
Yeah,
it was good to see one live. I don't generally get that opportunity.
yeah,
I think people don't understand what that social media buzz does for you. I mean, we certainly know what an increase in popularity does for us, but when it's kind of a commercial thing, I guess, a movie. You know, people want
yeah,
to be sure that people will see it, and the only way to be sure of that is to see that people want to see it. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's precisely it.
so exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Alex, for everything you do for us, and we'll see you next Monday, unless you're
Tentatively,
unless you're
tentative,
going somewhere.
tentatively, yes. I'm not sure. Greg might be sending me away on an assignment, so I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you next week, maybe.
All right,
Thank you.
great.
Thanks for
Thanks.
everything. Bye
Yep.
bye.
See ya.